Per, start please. Present yourself.
Okay, so I make this joke that I'm a recovering game developer, but now I think I'm more of a game development survivor. I've been involved in games for 2 decades, and the second of those 2 decades I've been involved in the Swedish games industry, which I've seen grow from a small hobbyist industry to a multi-billion kronor export.
Birgitta, please.
Birgitta Bergvall Kåreborn. I'm Pro Vice Chancellor at the university and Professor in Information Systems. And for me, since our university have a really strong collaboration with industry, for me, serious gaming and game development in general, I kind of see that as a next step in what many of us call industrialization 4.0. So for me, I think this will be a kind of natural part of the new systems that we develop with our collaborating industry.
Thank you. Ella.
Yes, my name is Ella Johnson. I am a brand strategist and a partner at Helicopter Brand Design here in Luleå. And for the communication industry here in this region, as all over Sweden, we need to find ways to attract new talents to see our industry. And I think we need to collaborate with other industries as well to develop what we do. And we need to be attractive as employers as well to make sure that the young people stay with us or maybe go away first and then come back to help us develop the industry.
Star, do you want to say anything more about yourself?
No.
Okay. It was a challenging speech from Star. What do you think? What kind of demands in the future do we need when it comes to competence and skills? With this fast, I think you will be the answer in the end of this discussion.
Okay.
So we will start with those. Per, a reflection. What kind of demands does it make on the system?
Yeah, I went to this place in Austria called Linz. It used to be the cultural capital of Europe, and they have a museum or event or experience center, whatever, called Ars Electronica. It's a digital art center. Have you been there? No? It's pretty cool. It's like a nerd fest, the thing where you can play with visualization and all that. Anyway. The guy who runs it, he talks about how we have this concept of design thinking, and that's like a hype word, and you can learn it maybe at your university. But he wants to say, let's try art thinking instead. Art thinking, because design thinking, that's creativity with a purpose, but art thinking is creativity with no particular purpose. Let's see what we end up with. And I think that's really what I take away from Star's presentation. You said new cognitive abilities. I also talk about, for example, Portal a lot, but I put it into the context of art, because this is a unique experience that opens your mind, and it's unique to the interactive expression. And that's the same. You can talk about art in the same way. And I think, well, your point is to say, wow, this is so special. So when I say art, I sort of bring it back to the normal vocabulary and put it in that context. So I think we can use this concept, this idea of art thinking as a compass in educating the next workforce. I have one more example, but maybe I'll save it.
You can save it. Birgitta, you're a representative for the normal way of learning things in an industrial world, a technical university.
Well, I think my first thought when I hear STAR, and I think it was extremely interesting, really thought-provoking, is the need for technical and digital skills on a basic and advanced level. And when I see that, and when I see how quickly everything is moving in today's society, I can be a bit, almost afraid when I look at the basic school in Sweden, and I think in many other countries, and the lack of technical and digital skills that we teach our children, both on a theoretical and on a practical level. So for me, that's really something that I think, how can we in Luleå really look at what can we do with our, our schools. The other thing that really makes me happy when I hear STAR is that gamification and many of the new applications that we see and that he gave an example of really requires interdisciplinary research. So it is a mix between design, between language, between technology and art. And for me, I think that's so exciting because it kind of, it brings us together in a natural way. And I think many times over many years we try to do that, but there's been nothing has been strong enough to really carry it through. And now I think we have something that is strong enough to really bring these people together. And yeah, for me, that's extremely exciting.
Interesting. We have an art perspective, a technical, digital perspective. Ella, what's the next perspective?
Well, for our business, we've been working a lot with this together between Luleå and Piteå, and we have just recently, the other day, on Wednesday, we launched the news that we have a new education for digital strategists that we've designed together, and it's going to start this autumn. And this is a really, really important step for our business, for our businesses to be able to attract young people to actually build on their skills when it comes to digital, because everything is digital today, and we have problems here to find people with the right skills for doing this. And I think listening to STAR, I mean, it really confirms that we're on the right track for doing that. So yes, it's we see a good development, and I think it will be great for this part of Sweden.
Perfect.
Yeah.
STAR.
Well, I like the fact that you used art, and brought it back to art, because I mean, for me personally, that's why I've always loved being in video games, because it's as much art as it is science. We often talk about how every project we do is a research and development project as we invent new features and technologies, and but at the same time, it has to be something meaningful and playful and fun for the user. And so, that's where Brigitte, you were talking about being interdisciplinary, and I think that's the key, because that's what games are. They are interdisciplinary. You have to have engineers, but you also have to have artists, and you have to have musicians. I mean, because it's a full sensory experience, just like a movie or a television. Like, you can't have one without the other. And so building those interdisciplinary programs, encouraging artists and musicians, and in fact, when you guys came to Austin, that was one of the stories we kept telling you, is that the way the game industry got started in Austin was, it started actually indirectly with a huge music scene on one side, and this technical infrastructure from IBM and Texas Instruments ending up together, where you had programmers coming out of these, industrial grade technology companies, coupled with, of all things, late 60s and early 70s album cover and music poster artists. Those were the artists we hired at Origin at the very beginning to make the art for our game from the music industry. And so I think that's building that interdisciplinary nature and getting that art and science melded together.
But in a way, I just want you to reflect, are we really organized for the future that you're talking about that already is here? It must be some strength and challenges for us to deal with. Are we organized the right way, or what would we do? Per, do you have an idea?
Yeah, I don't think you should worry too much about the shortcomings of the school system to educate the children about digital technology, because we do that for you with games. It's a fun and intuitive way, a playful way to acquire digital competence. I'm kind of joking, but it's a way to see the kids playing games as a meaningful activity and put it in context. In that perspective, I think the schools, they don't necessarily need to introduce the digital skills. The kids get that anyway. You might have to put them in context and add theory, etc. But I'd like to, can I add one more thing about why I think art is important? Because art inspires technology. It's easy to be obsessed with Moore's law that you sort of hinted at, Star, and the fast pace of technology. And by the way, that's also not always the case. We had a question about Counter-Strike in my talk earlier. Counter-Strike was released in '99. That's like the Stone Age in video games terms. So there's also these artifacts that live for a very long time in this digital fast-paced age. Anyway, but art inspires technology. You mentioned the holodeck from Star Trek, and I'm sure a lot of the engineers who came up with some of the projection technologies have been inspired by that. My favorite example is communication satellites, that very particular technology that makes mobile communication possible. That was invented by Arthur C. Clarke. He wrote about that in 1935 in a novel where space stations had engineers. They were on board the space stations to change the radio tubes because he didn't know about transistor technology. So he invented that long before the actual communication satellites were brought to space. So I think it's also important when we talk about this to have the right assumptions about what comes first. Sure, technology can drive opportunity for artists, but also artists inspire technology. And that's another reason to focus on art and creativity in itself.
Birgitta, I mean, you talk about that you have some kind of multidisciplinary research and education. Are we doing that today?
I think that, first of all, just a comment back. I think that young people today, of course, have a lot of basic understanding of technology of different sort, especially the digital through, social media, gaming. But for me, that's not enough. So for me, I would really like it to be on a deeper level, more than what we have today. I think that's really important. If we want to be a country who drives the technology, if we want to be a country that drives the innovation that we see in the future, I do not think that having a generation that knows how to play a game is enough. So for me, education in all of these artistic, technological, humanity subjects are extremely important. And then to the question, are we doing enough? No, I think we never think that we do enough because, and especially today when the development, the trends, the changes are coming really quickly, we feel that we are kind of not moving fast enough, and I feel the same. But I think we have some things that are really positive, and that is that if we look at school, both graduate and university level, we are to a larger extent today, having problem-oriented teaching and learning, and I think that's the way forward. Because when you look at challenges, when you look at problems, when you look at new innovation, when you ask young people to vision and try to create that vision in your courses, it automatically links many subjects together. So we are not there. We have many things we need to do, but we are on the right track. So I think that reinforcing and strengthening the way that we are moving, I think that is something we need to do.
Ella, I think you had another perspective. You started to talk about education that you have creating from a market perspective, the needs of the companies, and then try to make some kind of new ideas how to educate for the future. Can you explain more specific or be more concrete about what are the needs? The title digital strategist wasn't in 2010 a job, or?
No, I don't think we knew at that time that we would need digital strategists in our business. So yeah, that's true. It's a completely new development that we see in the communication industry, and we were talking about the cross-disciplinary sort of skills that we need. We are working with design, we are working with art, we are working with, trying to understand the user, trying to get through to the clients, to our customers, and where are they? What are they doing on their spare time? I mean, they use games and they do lots of things, so that's where we can reach them. And this morning we presented a case that we did for one of our clients where we used VR, and the reason that we did that is because we want to, we want to reach out in new ways. And that was really important, to use that technology to be able to attract clients. And that was an energy company in Sweden that is really not that sexy. But, so yes, having the digital strategist means that they need to understand those things, and we need to be able to implement that in the communication, in the strategies that we do for boards and owners to big companies that want to get through to the market. And communication today is about dialogue. It's about understanding the user. So yes, it's an important education.
Star, do you have any thoughts about how to create an environment where the education is more or less matching what the future needs are? Do you have any ideas or concrete examples what's working?
No, not exactly, but I mean, just my observations, So I got to go to Skellefteå and Luleå University and look at the programs there, and the other, I didn't go there, but I learned about the program at Pieto, and the fact that the different campuses are coordinating on projects together, and it's very project-based learning. I mean, those are all the right things on the education side, and maybe we're going to get there in a second, but maybe I'll leap forward, which is, I mean, I think there's a very, so I actually see everything being done and the movements in the right directions on the education side. I think for this region in particular, the practical challenge will be after that. Because I think what you're seeing is that they're either going abroad for the games jobs, or if they stay in Sweden, they go to Stockholm, right? So and part of that is that you just need this critical mass of companies, so that because the tech industry is very volatile. As you well know, like, companies expand, they contract, they go away. The games industry is the most volatile, I would argue, part of the tech industry. Part of a side effect of being art and science, it can't just be functional, it has to be entertaining, right? Where tech really just needs to function. The big difference between games and the rest of the technology sector is it has to function and be fun. And so they're even more volatile. So if you want somebody to want to come here to work, they need to know that if that company goes away, which has a high probability, like I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it's at least 50-50 that company will exist a year from now. And so they need to know that, okay, if that company goes away or has layoffs or whatever, I can go to this other company and work, and then I can go to this other company. And it doesn't necessarily have to be another game company. Like, it can be doing tech support for a game company or a tech company. It can be, doing web development for a traditional company. But you have to have that critical mass of jobs that are interesting to those people coming out of these education programs, or they're just going to move away.
I think we have some good examples in Sweden. We talked earlier today about Skövde.
Yeah,
hard to say in English. Skövde, perhaps.
But I can echo that point, and I think we saw a huge difference in the influx of people to Stockholm once we reached that critical mass. And now we see kind of a blowback where the Stockholm companies are opening shop in other countries because they need to reach out to a bigger labor market. Malmö is like one step behind, but also with the connection to Copenhagen and all that stuff. Skövde is a great example because they started from scratch 10 years ago. There was nothing, and now they've built this really successful industry. They had a #1 hit on Steam last spring. Microsoft has made a unique investment to the talent program there, etc. So if there's a will, there's a way. I think sometimes people who work in policy or government tend to be a little bit, they tend to have some, let's say they tend to see limitations. There's the decisions are always made elsewhere. It's globalization, or it's the financial crisis, or it's technology, or it's the policymakers in Stockholm or whatever. But actually you can do stuff, and I think the case from Skövde proves that. Also, I wouldn't worry too much about the digital, teaching digital skills in school. I'm more worried about creative skills, to be honest. From the perspective of our industry, we are concerned about the cutbacks on art programs and music programs. We see those as much more important skills for the future for us to be competitive in the global marketplace. I would like, for example, to see Kulturskolan do more with games and the interface between art and music and digital media. And can I make one more point?
Yeah, because I also want you to give an example. You can end with that then.
Okay.
What did Skövde do right?
Okay.
But please.
Right, so I'm going to make a different point, and then I come back to Skövde. All right. I think one of the most important projects for the education system and our industry and maybe somebody else is to demystify programming. Today we have this notion that programming is really difficult, and you have to know math, and you have to go to engineering school, and it's almost like a clergy that have this special magic power of programming, and it's like programming is about writing code, and we talk about it as a language that you have to learn. So, quick show of hands, who here has changed the picture on their Facebook profile? Hands up. Almost everybody. Great, congratulations, you have programmed a computer. It's not more difficult than that. Programming is about telling a computer what to do. And there's graphic interfaces. I love the Lego Mindstorms robot, which you can tell how to move with the drag and drop interface. If we can demystify programming and make that more accessible, not necessarily to train more programmers, but to have it as a natural connection for more people to have a relationship with programming, that's going to be a huge improvement. And that will serve a lot of different purposes, but it will also improve the competence, the pool of talent that we'd like to hire from. What did Skövde do right?
You have to wait with that for
Okay.
a moment, because I think it needs a replication of kind of idea from all of you. What Per is saying, programming is not a mystery. It is a human right, more or less, nowadays. Or a reflection?
I agree that changing a profile picture on your Facebook page is a kind of programming. Unfortunately, you won't make Facebook by knowing that level of programming. Unfortunately, you won't make Minecraft by knowing that level of programming. And you won't develop Skype or Spotify. So I think that on that level, we just have to agree to disagree. I don't think it's more mystifying than many other technological, creative, artistic, social, economic sciences. We have usually an interest in one area, and other people have an interest in another. And for me, I really do not in any way want to put these knowledges, against each other. Because as I said in the beginning of the discussion, what we really believe and that we work extremely hard at our university is to have research and innovation areas that are interdisciplinary, that mixes our artistic programs with the technical ones, that brings in economic and social aspects on the mining industry, that tries to see how digital technology and serious gaming and traditional games can improve the effectiveness, efficacy, and efficiency of the mining industry. So for me, it's not that one is better or more important than the other. It's that we have a mix, and I think that's what we need to think. How can we in Sweden make sure that we have this mix of competence? and that they are valued. And I think that, as Star said before, that's what I really like about the game and the serious gaming industry, that it's in many ways equalizes these. So instead of saying that, okay, if you're an artist, why don't you sing and perform for free? If you're a programmer, we'll pay you quite a lot of money. In the gaming industry, it's a job to develop the music for the game. It's a job to do the artistic drawings and the figures. It's a job to do the programming. And for me, when I see the future, as Star describes, and also as you describe with gaming as a way of, a new way of looking and learning, I kind of hope that will mean that we will have a broader section of people who are going into these industries, because I do agree that they are extremely important for creativity, innovation. But for me, technology, engineering, I mean, if I look at many programmers, many developers, for me, they are extremely innovative. So I think there's innovation in all these fields, and we need to bring them together and see how they can strengthen each other. So I think, for me, that's something very important.
Ella, you have a communication company, you're part of a communication company. Do you see that those skills, multi-skills, are moving in to create the new communication for the future?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's, and I think what we need to do more, and I agree with you that when we look at creativity, it has not necessarily to do with art or design. I mean, it's really very creative to do programming, and strategies is also very creative part of the work. And we see in this town that we've been working quite a lot with the IT industry in this town that is really very tech driven, and they need the skills that we have to understand the users, to work with usability and interactive design. So we're meeting up together with those people, and it's really good with different brains sitting around the same table, and we create new creative ideas together. So yes, we see a lot of that in the communication industry, and I think it's really inspiring to see that we are starting to cross borders with other with the IT industry, for instance. And I think also that, I mean, Sweden is a country where we are known for our creativity. We've already mentioned lots of them here on stage today, and I think we should continue to work on that and to see to it that we in this area also get a big part of that.
Okay, in creativity, Star, what is a dream team if you have to choose like 5 competences or 5 individuals? What would the dream team be?
That's a good question. On average, it is, our industry basically has 3 main areas of expertise or departments, depending on how you're structured. So you have programmers, artists, and designers. And then there are specialties as well, like music and sound, and more sub specialties within programming, like especially now that games are less and less single one-off products and more like games as a service. So you see sub-specializations with database and engineers and things like that. So if I probably have 3 engineers, an artist, and a designer, if that's my heavy on the engineers, just because, but what's interesting is, it's different with smaller teams versus larger teams. With a smaller team, those of us who are working now with smaller teams, people do multiple things. So, we blur the lines on smaller teams between artist and designer and programmer, and so the programmers are doing as much design, and the designers are doing as much scripting as the programmers, and even the artists are doing scripting and inside the tools and inside the game. Especially with things like visual effects. Visual effects is very heavy script driven, and it requires actually a more programmatic mind. So even though I use those titles, we are using them a lot more loosely than we have ever before, and so. that was an easy, sort of an easy answer, but it's a little more blurry than that. When you get to larger teams, like making AAA titles where you have like 300 people, there's definitely like, you know, the programmer who's only doing visual effects, the programmer who's just doing analytics, the programmer who's just doing that. Yeah.
Thanks. Now, Skövde, 3 things that they have done right for their great development.
Thanks. And first, let me apologize because I know it's not in good taste to answer your phone on stage. But
It depends who's calling.
Yeah, this is my ride to the airport, and he didn't stop calling, so at least now I know.
Okay, perfect.
Anyway, before I tell you the secret of the success of Skövde, I want to say to you that, Ella, that there's I don't mean to say that programming is less creative. My point is the exact opposite. Programming is being creative. Let's talk about programming as a creative expression rather than something for engineers. And I'm also not concerned about Sweden not being enough focusing on engineering. The only question we ever ask is, well, yes, but what is it good for? We have to let go of the useful and move toward the playful. Our challenge is always that we don't embrace the playful because we always try to be useful, but the future is going to be in the playful, and that's where we need to make an effort to go because the useful comes natural for us. Skövde, they did a couple of things right. They had a visionary inside each part of the society. They had somebody inside the university, somebody inside the incubator, somebody inside the local industry, and somebody inside the city government. And they came together and worked with a joint vision. And that force combined made it possible for them to overcome all these practical challenges and make something great.
Thank you. You will send one advice or, well, yes, a one-liner that in one way will condense all the discussion to a single advice to the audience. What will they do when they go out from this panel discussion and on Monday when they go back to work?
Oh, that was, I mean, what a simple task Friday afternoon.
But you're a professor, so come on.
Show it. Show me the money.
Show me the money. Okay.
If I would give one advice, I think it is to really embrace change. I think that would be the main advice. Embrace change instead of being afraid of it, because I think that fear, that brings out the absolutely worst thing in people, no matter what we are afraid of. And creativity, motivation, doing things we love, trusting in people, that brings out the absolutely best thing in people. And if we want, you know, Sweden to be among the best countries driving development, then I think we need to have creativity, motivation, and trust.
We have
one-liner.
A one-liner in an academic way. Now I want a one-liner in a communication way.
I'll say be brave, be passionate, and work together.
Per?
Have fun.
Star, you will, as a guest, have the opportunity to give us an advice.
Play games.
Play games. Okay, Friday afternoon. This is a question from the audience, perhaps. Otherwise, we have to end this discussion from the stage, I think. I will want to send a warm applause from the audience to the panel. Thank you so much. Welcome back to Luleå, both Per and Star.